Okay, guys, let's get right into this because this is kind of a big month as to what's going on. It's the ramp up month for Social Security benefits and what then happens going into 2024. So, this will be news that's talking about specifically September, but also talking about the future of Social Security benefits into 2024. Let's go through some of the basics real quick so you understand what's going on. Molly Weisner of the Federal Times wrote an article about the SSA executives returning back to offices. So, the SSA is supposedly moving things back to the ways they actually were back in the day pre-COVID, where everybody was centralized in a physical office. I want to quote directly from our article. The Social Security Administration announced Monday that the agency's managerial corps will be required, so they're forcing them back, to work in person 4 times per 2-week pay period. So when you think about it, they've only got to be there basically 4 days out of a 2-week pay period. So they're not pushing too hard to get them back to offices, and that'll be starting in the coming months. A spokesperson confirmed the announcement applies only to senior executives effective October 2nd and managers and supervisors with the headquarters duty station on November 6th. So basically, October, November, that's when they're going to start forcing these executives to actually go back to these offices. The agency did not elaborate on why that decision was made. And I can already tell you this article is going to specifically go into how the unions are unhappy about what's going on with going back to offices. The unions, just so you know, when it comes to Social Security benefits, they push the agenda of giving more of these employees time at home, more space away from the office. So, I mean, I can't blame them. You know what I mean? I switched from the COVID going to a million offices over and over and over and over and over again. Like I had like 9 offices that I would literally go to consistently every week throughout Central Florida. Never again. Some 80% of SSA employees are considered non-supervisory, according to the federal employment data from 2022. Supervisory employees are generally excluded from union bargaining units, but for the rest of the workforce, eligibility for telework was preserved in the newly signed labor agreement between the American Federation of Government Employees and the agency's 42,000 covered employees, which says nothing about how many remote work days are permitted. Policies for other agency employees could still change. So what they're saying here is that the executives and the higher up managers, they don't get to be part of the negotiations related to, these unions and being able to get some of the benefits that the union might be able to argue for on behalf of those who are in a non-managerial position. Okay. Last March, the SSA field offices returned in office 2 days per week. Since then, union leaders have implored the agency to protect work flexibilities where possible. The agency has suffered from several years of dropping morale, underfunding, understaffing, and increased workload. Employees have said, which has made them argue that the ability to telework would improve retention and allow some employees to be more productive. So a couple of things you have to understand here about what the SSA is doing. The SSA has a problem. They're not able to process the amount of backlog that they actually have right now. And they also have another problem, which is that their employees keep dropping like flies in the heat of Florida. They're just not sticking around. They have realized that working for the government is cool, but not that cool. And they've realized that getting paid a small amount is cool, but not really cool at all. And they've realized that having benefits way down the line that keep becoming essentially devalued from improper inflation calculations, also not cool. So the SSA, more so than most of the agencies out there, is basically losing employees left and right, which has made the whole application process for disability benefits or even retirement benefits just not something that it should be. It's supposed to be something that's much faster, much easier, much smoother. It's just not what it is. And that's because they don't have the people. Now, they're saying the unions are pushing to have telework as a main function and that employees will be able to, they'll stick with this more. Even with the lower pay, they'll stick with this. But the reality is they're signing new agreements. They're trying to work deals. This is a good thing. It's rolling in the right direction. Okay. Because remember, at the end of the day, we just want everybody to essentially be able to get the backlog process. That's what we want at the end of the day. Purple Mafia, thank you for the $9.99 donation. I super duper appreciate that. That's awesome. Super love right there. That's super duper. Very cool. Thank you. Purple Mafia has been with us for a very long time. So that actually is a very cool thing. And, I have to let you guys know, if you enjoy these videos, if you like them, They're not really going to be putting them in the suggested search anymore, because now it's a pay-to-play game. You have to basically pay to advertise to get into the suggested search for the most part. So just, if you want to see more videos where I outline what's going on, you have to go ahead and subscribe and then hit the little all button so that the bell is rung. That way you'll see it. Otherwise, you're just not going to see them. It's like you could subscribe, but it's not really going to mean anything. Next thing, since last year, here's a quote. Simply put, other employers offer better pay benefits, telework and remote work options, upward mobility, and support, said AFGE Council 220 President Jessica LaPointe in a press conference in April. She's the union head. She's the one that basically says, she wants better conditions, more money, more accommodations for her, union recipients, the workers of the SSA. But, and here's, I'm gonna say this sentence, and some of the people who are a little bit more liberal on this channel that are watching it are going to be a little bit surprised by this. Just let me take a drink because I'm super tired today. Okay, so here's the deal. And this paragraph surprised me because you don't normally see this stuff. But since the White House has announced in May that it expects federal agencies to increase meaningful in-person work, many have initiated plans to repopulate offices post-pandemic. So there's a problem. The agencies have all these little offices all over the place, and they're not filled with people, basically, let's call it like it is in these offices. Like I remember during COVID, like the hearing office in Orlando, there was like hardly anybody there. There's just like, hardly anybody there. In fact, there were times when there was literally nobody there. So the bottom line is the government is saying, look, cool, if you're going to go telework, we expect you to go ahead and give up on these offices that you were originally using. Pull back the budget. We'll find a way to blow the money somewhere else. And I put that politely because that literally is what they've been doing. They're not good at accounting when it comes to how they spend their money. And when I say their money, I mean our money. We're the ones who pay taxes. So the bottom line is, I thought that was interesting. The White House announced in May, right? So it's not that many months ago that, they expect the federal agencies, the SSA, the VA, all of those to have meaningful in-person work, okay, to increase the meaningful in-person work. Several more agencies, including the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, Department of Education, Department of Veteran Affairs, and the Department of Transportation, among others, have moved to increase in-office work as Congress has put increasing pressure on executive agencies to either cut back on telework, right, doing the telephone gig, or, and here's the important part, give up leases for empty office space. And then I'm sure you guys are wondering, and what your brain is saying is, well, then why don't they just put a person in it if they want to keep their office space? Well, that's the thing is the government's going to be doing probably a review on all these different agencies to see how many people they have and whether or not they can put those people and scrunch them into a different office, thereby reducing the amount of offices that are there. Now, what's interesting about this is that this is actually counter to what President Biden originally promoted in his pre-White House documentation, which is that he did not want to get rid of local field offices that people can access, go to, get information, etc., for these on-the-ground administrations. But now it seems like the White House is having a little bit of a change of heart when it comes to this, being that, look, if these agencies aren't properly filling these spots, they're not looking for a perfect zero, then get rid of the office. They're like, if it's just low, then they're saying, well, maybe you should give up the lease on these empty office spaces. And so essentially the White House is doing a little bit of a flip-flop on the original design of, hey, we should keep all these field offices. I get it why they want to put people back into office. They're expecting to increase productivity. They're expecting to, try and basically have people produce more, have more, files that they have to go through. I get that. But the problem is people are quitting the federal government, especially the SSA. So if you have a retention problem, usually forcing the employees to do more, like, put 15 pounds into a 10-pound sack, is not the methodology to get to that place. Okay. All right. In addition to that, the SSA has realized that SSI people who don't read the rules often end up with an overpayment. Okay. This happens all the time. I get at least 3 or 4 calls a day from SSA people that are on SSI who are essentially with an overpayment situation. As a result of this, they recently released an article outlining what kids should be aware of. So they're sending it to the parents and also the children 14 to 17 before they turn 18, because, they go through that transition process. This is directly from the SSA's Advocates page. I'm just going to quote. This week, we mailed out a notice to more than 323,000 supplemental security income recipients between the ages of 14 and 17. This is called your transitioned aged youth group, okay? And they're adult representatives to help them identify policies and other resources to assist youth in their transition to adulthood, okay? So they send it out to the kids and their payee parents, or whoever their payees were. To summarize, it tells parents that they will need to keep track of where their kids went for medical treatment, when to notify the SSA of the child's earnings, when to notify the SSA of the parent's earnings, and a small outline on work incentives that may help the child work their way off of disability benefits. It also goes into the 301 rule, which means that if you are no longer disabled while turning 18, but are in one of their special programs to, work, earn money, keep your benefits, and then transition off of essentially the program, both disability and the work incentive program, during that completion of the program, you'll be safe, right? You can't be knocked off of benefits. You'll be safe because you're in a program. They want you to work your way off of benefits. This is the carrot to get you off of benefits. Okay. Now, this is from the WRIC.com earlier this month, and I'm going to quote real quick. A company called Pension Benefit Information, PBI, began sending letters to some former state employees and their beneficiaries. The letters explained that the company, which the Virginia retirement system uses to help them accurately make benefit payments, learned in May that a third party accessed one of their Move It transfer servers on May 29, 2023 and May 30, 2023. The letter from PBI confirms that data was downloaded. The company says that data includes names, partial addresses, social security numbers, and dates of birth. The Virginia retirement system says the breach doesn't affect active members, but rather retirees and beneficiaries. Data from the 2022 shows that there are over 230,000 retirees and beneficiaries in the Virginia retirement system. So that sucks because you've essentially just, 230,000 people now have their socials, stuff like that out there, specifically from Virginia. PBI says that they're offering affected people access to 12 months of complimentary credit monitoring and identity restoration solutions, which is, of course, crap because once it's out there, it's out there. But don't worry, it's been out there many, many times before from many and many other companies. So, I need the caffeine. That's why. All right. Now, do giant wildfires, hurricanes, damaged property, unhappy moments in life, do these affect the outcome of the cost of living adjustment for the next year? Yeah, they do. They do. So, as we're in hurricane season, and as you know, July, August, September, those are the calculating months for essentially the cost of living adjustment. So what happens? So if the item is massively needed, right? So something happens and you need an item as a result of a hurricane, right? Then everybody goes and purchases it. So let's use, this is an easy one. There are better ones, but this is an easy one just to constructively imagine in your brain. Like if you needed wood or, cinder blocks or blocks or whatever after a hurricane, then there aren't enough of that product usually left on the shelves because everybody goes out and buys it. And that creates a product shortage that normally wouldn't be there. And, the deal with this is that you have then a surplus of cash waiting to purchase that product. So if there's a surplus in cash, then the product price rises because the product is rare, the cash is available. Okay. And that's what causes inflation. If that product is part of the calculated products that the government uses to calculate the cost of living adjustment, then the inflation rate will increase more aggressively. Why is this important and also somewhat shitty? It's important because at the end of the day, hurricanes come in August, September, and October. This means that the food shortages, among other products, right, and other issues, can directly increase the price of an item, which during July, August, and September will be calculated for the cost of living adjustment. So basically, of those 3 hurricane months, 2 of them are relevant to the cost of living adjustment. Okay, the more the COLA number rises, right? So instead of being 3%, it's 4% or 5% or whatever. The more you get in money for the next year as an increase to your benefit because they're giving you more money to be able to buy the same stuff that which you would have been able to buy the year before. Problem though, everybody's like, yes, amazing. I get so much money. Wow. No, it's actually shit. It's actually a bad situation. Here's why. You end up actually getting less, significantly less. The higher the cost of living adjustment number, like the higher that number is, the more money you get to, deal with the inflation of next year, it's never enough. They always calculate it to basically your non-benefit, okay, to be a negative for you. And this has resulted in basically about a $500 deficit from around 2000 to 2023, where people literally should be getting, based off of the nonprofit calculations from DC, about $500 per month more every single month for your benefits. That includes SSI people, that includes SSDI people, that includes DAC people, that includes retirement people. Yeah. So you should literally be getting around $500 more. Want your Medicare to just pay for itself? That's where it went. Want to be able to actually afford a full, basket of groceries? That's where it went. Right there. Okay. Additionally, it appears that due to the calendar, SSI folks may be getting 2 checks in September. Well, they will be, but it's not an extra check. So don't think you're like winning the lottery. Yeehaw. Since October 1st falls on a Sunday in 2023, October payments are coming a couple of days early. And because they're earlier, that means that your October payment is actually going to arrive on Friday, which is September 27th, and you won't receive an actual payment in October. So if you're an SSI person, don't think you're getting 2 checks in September and another one coming in October. Your 2 checks in September, the last one is your October check. Cool. The New York Times has reported that COVID issues are on the rise, and now there's new mutations, which sucks, but it's an election year next year, so we're not surprised. China has an interesting biostatistician, figure that you should be aware of. New research has found China's decision to end its strict COVID zero strategy policy, and I'm quoting here, had a truly devastating outcome, with a new report claiming there has been 1.9 million excess deaths in just 2 months. The figure applies only to adults over the age of 30 who died between December 2022 and January 2023, according to the paper published in the journal JAMA Network Open. I'm going to quote a few more things here because these statistics are kind of interesting. The Chinese government had previously disclosed about 60,000 COVID-related deaths in health facilities from early December to middle of January. So remember, we're talking about a little bit more than a month worth of time. A little bit more than a month, okay? In the U.S., which reported the highest number of COVID deaths during the pandemic, a cumulative, remember, the U.S. was good about actually figuring out who died, whereas other countries were like, we think maybe we tried to count the toes, but we're not absolutely certain, yada, yada. So the U.S., which reported the highest number of COVID deaths during the pandemic, a cumulative 1.1 million adults aged 45 and older died from the virus, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Okay, that's 45 and older. Okay, not the kids. Didn't go into the kids. Estimating the number of deaths for COVID has been difficult over the world for a range of reasons, including the challenges of diagnosing infections early on in the outbreak and tracking of everyone affected during the massive waves that followed. Bottom line, experts agree the figures are almost certainly an underestimate. They're thinking more people died in every nation and that it may take years to calculate the true toll. The estimated number of excess deaths, another way of calculating mortality that compares death rates among the same groups during different periods of time. And here's basically the winners in a thing you never want to be the winner of. Okay, here are the countries rather, that had the most deaths that they're looking at. Okay, it puts India at the top with 6.2 million deaths. Okay. I've read some articles on it. Basically, it's just a lot of people in a small area, hygiene changes, it's just cultural. 6.2 million deaths in India, followed by China, 1.9 million, Russia at 1.5 million, and the US at 1.3 million. But what they're saying is China is actually coming out with some new figures that may have shown significantly more deaths when they pulled back essentially the way that they were handling and restricting the Chinese citizens, inhabitants during, COVID. Now, there's another problem that I need to go into real quick that I think we should all just be aware of. There's this new thing. It's a new thing, a new COVID thing. It's mutation. It's a problem. This is from Yale Medicine. It is BA.2.86. That is the variant, if you will. But not a cool variant like, from the Marvel Universe. It's crap variant. This is from Yale Medicine. I quote, BA.2.86 is a newly designated variant of Omicron, which itself is a variant of the SARS-CoV-2. the virus that causes COVID-19. The BA.2.86 has additional mutations compared to previously detected Omicron variants. More specifically, it is derived from BA.2, an Omicron subvariant that circulated more than a year ago, Dr. Roberts adds. The BA.2.86 was first detected in July in Denmark. So we're talking like a couple months ago. Like that's it. You know what I mean? Just a couple months ago. You know, you had, well, this is late July. So you're really looking at August, September. Well, I mean, technically we haven't gotten into September yet. We're like August 31st. But point is, so basically it's been around for a month, a little bit over a month, slightly more than a month. Okay. All right. The fact that the known cases so far do not appear to be linked indicated that the strain is circulating more widely than believed, especially since COVID-19 surveillance has lessened, Dr. Roberts says. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, existing tests to detect the medications used to treat COVID-19 appear to be effective with the BA.2.86, but this variant may be more capable of causing infection in people who have COVID-19 or have been vaccinated against it. The vaccinations. I'm not going into that, though. There's currently no evidence that the strain is causing more severe illness. What's more, at this time, the increase in COVID-19 hospitalizations in the U.S. is likely driven by XBB lineage viruses, not the BA.2.86 virus. Now, here's the most concerning thing about this new variant. Because BA.2.86 has so many mutations that make it different from other coronavirus strains, many medical experts wonder if it has the potential to bypass immune defenses, both from natural infection and prior vaccination. Nobody knows right now. This is a quote from, I think, Dr. Roberts. Nobody knows right now, but studies are ongoing. He says the biggest concern has been the number of mutation differences with the BA.2.86. When we went from XBB.1.5 to EG.5, that was maybe one or two mutations, and they were expected. With every respiratory virus, as it spreads from person to person, it evolves gradually over time. But these massive shifts, which we also saw from Delta and Omicron, are worrisome. So just to, and here, the big question, I'll do the big question code. The big question is if BA.2.86 will have the same exponential growth that Omicron did in terms of case numbers, or will it die out, which is certainly what everyone hopes. So here's the thing, okay? I'm not making the assertion that at the end of the day, a COVID variant somehow knows who is applying for president of the United States. It sounds funny when I say it. It sounds funny. It sounds cute and funny, which is terrible. But if we're honest with each other, we have a roller coaster, right? We have this like things are really, you know, politics, and then this, and then if I were a betting man, which I'm not, I never go, like when I go on like the casino boats or whatever, I end up just sitting there drinking like a soda, watching the band, wondering why people literally sit there in front of a machine where you have to pull a bar. I mean, maybe if it's like a way to work out and spend money at the same time, that's good for you. That's not good for me. Like I'll go halfway with you. I'll pay for a gym membership, but I won't go. That's my fat tax. But the point is, I'm not a betting person. Kind of got there in a weird way. But at the end of the day, I also know that when you have the presidency of the United States on the line, a potential World War III on the line, which is kind of what we already have. I mean, I don't know how this would not be a World War III. You got all these countries feeding stuff to basically one other country that represents like the allied force through Ukraine. And then you have basically Russia with China and all these. Then you have like that whole group. I mean, it's a world war. This is what it is. So my point is, during a time like this, countries worry less about the people, more about basically raw materials. Raw materials are what make companies, and most specifically countries, lather up. They get real excited. They get very excited. If you take, for example, like raw, I hate this chair. This chair's going to break on me. I can feel it. If you take, for example, like lumber, steel, iron, titanium, aluminum. If you take, for example, those things that we use, copper, diamonds, whatever, diamonds are used in many, many applications in the scientific community. But if you take those things and you look at like what you can make with them, computer chips, and you look at like the raw and then the finished materials, countries in times of war worry more so about the raw materials, how they're going to get them and make the products that they need to win the war. Because, and I don't want you to freak out, because if a lot of people in a country die, but the country survives because it was able to make enough of its defensive material or offensive, to survive, protect some form of government, then it has survived. But if it spends too much of its assets trying to protect the people and then loses the war in total, then guess what? There's no more country. You just have people that then have to join another country. So at the end of the day, America, in my opinion, as this whole thing with Ukraine continues to blossom, if you will, is going to be looking for raw materials. And the amount of money spent per person when it comes to COVID and measures in application for COVID are going to be less. Now, here's my theory. Do I think that there will be another stimulus check? Yeah. It's time to buy some votes, people. It's time to buy some votes. Yes, I think there will be another COVID stimulus check. Do I think that we will be thrust into darkness with this whole COVID thing again? Yeah, I do. I really do. And here's why. I'm going to stay away from the whole voting thing on that because I know it's a very big hot topic. And I think everybody should vote the way they want to vote. And is there abuse in the voting system? Absolutely. There's, of course, there's never not been abuse in a voting system. I remember being at the Masonic Lodge and, looking at how because many of you don't realize this, but, with voting, that whole idea of like blackballing somebody, that's from the Masonic Lodge. Like I've literally seen a real blackballing of somebody in the Masonic Lodge because the way they vote, I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to say this, but I think I am. I think this is in a book. It's got to be in a book somewhere, but whatever. The point is you sit there and then you all line up and then you grab these balls, and one's like a black ball and one's like a wooden ball, like a white wooden ball. And some of them are white plastic. So some are like a black stained ball and like a yellow tan ball, and then some of them are like actual black plastic, white plastic balls. So you take your ball and you hide it. I don't show anybody, right? And then you walk basically up to the thing that you're going to vote with, right? And then when you get to the thing and you're super hiding this, like, okay, wait. Annette LaPaul said, I saw it on TV, so you're okay. Okay, cool. So yeah, so most of the Masonic stuff that is already out there, like the handshakes and like the final ceremony, like all that stuff is already out there. So I should be okay. But if I end up dead, you'll know why. Anyway, the point is they're not gonna. I mean, they could, but they're not gonna find me. All right. The point is, so you get up to this little thing. It's like this little thing that you drop the ball in, right? It's got like a little hidden, like you drop it in there. And so you take your ball and you're like hiding it. And then what everybody does is they do this stupid maneuver with the ball in their hand. They like bring it over top of this thing, right? And then they just kind of like look around the room, cover it with their hands, and they just boop, drop it. It says boop, like a little pin, and you can hear it go. Now, what's funny is that I always thought about this because, if like one of them were wood balls and one of them was like a plastic ball, like you would know because it's going to hit the other balls that are in there. Just Fred, thank you for the $4.99 donation. Super love it. That's awesome. Very, very cool. Thank you. That's amazing. Super thank you. So what happens is this, right? So you drop your ball in. And so what happens is everybody puts like a white ball in for the most part. But then at some point, somebody will put a black ball in. Like some point, like if somebody's not happy, if they don't want to vote somebody in because they're not happy or whatever, then what happens is so once everybody's done their turn, walked around, put their ball in the thing, then they take the thing and the worshipful master takes it up. I forget, was it the worshipful master or the secretary? Might have been the secretary who actually counts it and then delivers the news to the worshipful master. If you guys don't know who the WM is, the WM is the guy who sits in the east, that has a special hat on. They're like the one leading the whole ceremony. Which, by the way, if you guys ever wonder like what Masonry really is, it's like government camp. I know that sounds really unpopular and not that much fun, and it's not. It's literally not, but it's like government camp. You literally learn how to interact with people, follow court proceedings, follow ritual proceedings. It's government camp. That's all it is. So the point is then, which tells you why I probably would never be a great politician, because they have a really hard time getting me to go to any of the events. And I'll go to the fun ones, like where, there's, but anyway, point is I haven't been in like, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years. It's been a while. So the point, I keep paying my dues, but I never go. So the point is, all right. So I was just thinking in my head, I was like, man, maybe that's why you're not dating anyone. I don't know if you noticed, like 3 seconds before I said that, my whole face was just like, Walter, your life is not on track. Maybe it's because of that. So, anyways, yeah. So the point is, when you go ahead and do that and somebody gets blackballed, then that person can't get into, can't join. Or, for example, when there's an idea and the idea gets blackballed, that idea does not pass. Usually the way they vote is not with like that full system, but sometimes it's a really important thing. Like when you let somebody in, that's a really important thing. And then they use this blackball system to go ahead. Anyway, so everybody's always like, and you can always tell the old guys that are sitting there, like the really old ones, they've got like the worst tie. I don't know what it is, but some older men that wear ties all the time pick the most awful ties I have ever seen on a human being in my entire life. And I don't mean the cutesy ties. I don't mean the ties where they're like, here's Daffy Duck. I'm a grown man. I don't mean that. I mean like the ugliest, like Florentine bullshit ties where it's just flowing all over. It's like this wide. It's not long enough. I'm just like, how does this dude not know how to wear a tie? But the truth is they know really well how to do it. I think personally, they're trying to fight the system subconsciously. I don't think they realize that they are picking the shittiest ties that exist on a male body, but at the same time, they wear it with pride. So anyway, the point is, I show up in like your classic, like dark navy blue tie, maybe white polka dot with dark navy blue, very classy, very, very formal. I would always, because that's an attorney's role. You have to show up looking like you don't love your life. That's you got to do it right. So I would do that. They would show up. I swear to God, it's like somebody, look, all the failed people who couldn't make it into fashion design ties. I swear to God. I mean, I'm not talking about Tom Ford ties here. I'm talking about like the ties where the colors, I don't even know how to explain it. It's hard to like, I don't even own one anymore. Like I literally donated all my crap ties to the homeless, which sounds like a mean thing to do. And it is, but I did it. And I didn't get a tax write-off, though. I should have done that. That would have been the smart thing to do. Anyway, the point is I donated a bunch of ties, and the shittiest ties, the ties where I was like, these are the worst ties I've ever seen. I donated some of those to the Blue Lodge because I thought it was funny. And then when I dropped them off, they're like, these are great. And I was like, no, sir. But they were cool with it. And it is a funny other fact. I don't know if you guys know this. Funny other side fact. At the Orlando 69 Blue Lodge, if you ever go there, the white aprons that like, you have to wear as like a person that like, some of us have like nice aprons. They're embroidered and they got all this cool stuff on them and stuff. But then some of us, like, we just show up and we're like, hey, I'm here. What's going on? The white aprons, like these junky cotton aprons that they have. When you put that thing on at the Orlando 69 Lodge, if it looks like it's really clean, that's because I was the one who cleaned them. I had to soak them in OxyClean multiple times to get all the sweat and the sadness out of them. But they came back ironed, and they came back so crisp, so nice. Let me tell you, they're probably crap now because it's been like, I don't know, 10 years since I did it, but they were so nice when I left them there. Anyways, point is, end of the day, what do I think is going to happen? I think there's going to be another stimulus. I think that there's going to be another slowdown or shutdown or whatever. I think that what we're going to run into is that, China was kind of the focal point with the last one. They'll probably have a different country be the next focal point. I think that people will become aggressive or angry towards other immigrants, immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers that are coming into this country. And here's what's happening. Like if we break down Social Security benefits to its most base fundamental level of like, what is that thing? Like if this was Social Security benefits, we'd be like, what is that? I'm going to poke it with a stick. What is that? What? Hey, and if you look at it and you examine it, you're like, what is the, why do we have this? What's happening is that the SSDI people are basically not getting enough per month. And a lot of them are very close to getting the same amount as the SSI people. And the SSI people are basically, so the max is $914. So the SSDI people are pissed at the SSI people. And then the SSI people feel like they don't have enough to be able to survive because they don't, right? You need at least $1,500 a month to be able to survive in this country. Realistically, as like a human being where the country is like, yeah, we are happy that you're here. Like as an appreciated human being, you would need at least $1,500 a month to be able to survive. So the SSDI people are starting, and the retired people are starting to get more and more crabby towards how much little money they have and how close of that small amount of money they have to SSI people. Because they're sitting back and they're like, wait a minute. I worked my entire bleeping life for this amount per month. I worked my entire bleeping life for this amount. And the retired and the SSDI people, they get pissed. They get pissed because when they're looking at a check of like $1,600 and the SSI person who's never worked a day in their life or hasn't worked much is getting 914, they're sitting and look at this thing going, wait a minute. And then they find out they got to pay for Medicare and the SSI people don't have to pay for Medicaid. And they're sitting there going, wait a minute. What the hell is this shit? And you got to understand why. Because when you work your entire life and you only get slightly more than the person that's never worked a day in their life, it's dramatic. It's like, whoa. So the problem is when you add on to that, the fact that we have more immigrants, more asylum seekers, more refugees coming into this country than ever. I mean, you want an honest figure that's scary? And I'll do a whole video on this, but there's more immigrants coming into this country than like the first couple of like, how do I put this? Like, and I know I'm getting calls. I know I have to take calls. I know I have to go. I know I have to go live. I know that where I answer random questions, but there's more people coming to this country right now, okay, during Biden's presidency than probably the first, 20, 30 years of America being whatever America was supposed to be. There wasn't as many people back then. And I'll go find the math out and figure out exactly what that is of how many people have come into the country that we can, actually calculate what they have numbers on versus how many people started this country. And we might be startled. It might be like 100 years went by before we had that many in equivalents to how many came in. Now, the other argument is that people always say, look, we shouldn't be bringing in all these immigrants, yada, yada. They have to earn their way in, cha-cha-cha. And I don't disagree with earning your way to become a citizen. I don't think, becoming an American is a big deal. A lot of people don't realize that the Constitution, which they don't learn about in school anymore, is filled with all these rights and freedoms and benefits and kick-ass stuff that people don't learn about. And a lot of people take those rights and benefits not to heart, but they're just like, oh, maybe it's out there in some writing somewhere. But the immigrants, they come from countries, even some of them that come from like, you could say North Korea or even South Korea or other places, they come from countries where they don't have all these rights. This free speech thing. What is that? Right to carry. What is that? Right to, freedom of press, freedom of religion, freedom of this, freedom of that, what are those? So from my perspective, I think that at the end of the day, we are moving in a bad direction. And to be fair, the reason why is that let's say that we have some more years of capitalism, marketplace, instability. When I go to Home Depot, when I was finishing up when I was starting New Jersey, when I was working on the farm up there, and then basically transitioning to 1435 over here, right? This house over here. The problem is this. Okay. The stuff at Home Depot has nearly doubled from what a lot of the stuff I used to buy. And that was over a 3 to 5 year period that it is doubled. Paint, doubled. Those 11-foot posts, doubled. It's doubled. What saddens me as a disability attorney about the structural significance of our current marketplace is that SSI, SSDI, disabled people, retired people, they're not going to be able to afford their houses in the future. They're not. Like, if you sell your house right now, like, this is probably the last time you're going to be able to get a house that's like that. Sure, you can always get a crappier house in a crappier area in a crappier way and has more problems, needs more upkeep, needs more whatever. Sure. But if you sell your house right now at these rates, it's not likely for a very, very long time, if any, that you'll be able to actually buy an equivalent house. It's just not likely. So what concerns me is that when you make benefits low, right, the cost of living adjustment is harmful, and then you make the cost of repairs to a home high, you've essentially you've caused a downsizing, right? You've forced a downsizing. And so what happens? So you have all these retired people, right? And then some of them are disabled that inherited their house or were able to just buy it with a special mortgage, things like that. SSI people, I was going to make a video about how SSI people could try and get a mini mortgage to go ahead and pay for a house. It's just not realistic. It's just not enough money, and everything's so expensive now, it's off the table. So the point is that if somebody can't afford, okay, so, back in the day, you go back 10, 15 years ago, roofs, shingle roofs, $6,000, $10,000. Now they're like 25 to 35 grand. Okay. So is that affordable for somebody that's on retirement benefits? No. Did that person have insurance on their home? Some of them, yeah. Some of them, no. We just got a comment here, $10 donation. Let me check it out real quick. It says, what the F am I watching? Oh, yeah, that's his name. Can I buy owner finance land without SSA knowing until I pay it off? I want to build a tiny home. About to get my back pay enough for a big down payment, but not to cover the whole sale. I'm on SSI. All right, so the deal with SSI is that you are allowed to have one home/dwelling. So you've got to go ahead and you can potentially buy that land using your back pay. You can try and finance it and stuff like that. And if that's the only piece of land you've got, that's fine. But make sure you put a dwelling on it. Make sure you put an RV on it. Make sure you put a camper, a pop-up, whatever on it. That way that counts as your actual dwelling. But yeah, you can use your back pay to go ahead and buy a property and then put something on it. That's something I used to say back in the day that you should do, people should do. But then people accused me of saying like, oh, you're trying to lessen the standards of people on SSI by having them live in a trailer on a piece of land. And I'm like, yeah, but it's your piece of land. Like, you can tell people to shove it off whenever you want, right? That's your piece of land. The cops show up and they're like, hey, we heard there's a disturbance. And you're like, cool, bye. That's your land. That is your land. It is your land, right? Unless, of course, the disturbance is somebody else in there that, something bad's happened to, then you have to let them deal with the subject, the issue. But the point is, yeah, you can go ahead and buy a piece of land with your back pay and then put an RV, a trailer, or whatever on it. Now, remember, there is a little mix up here. You need to understand this with that question. When the SSA looks at RVs, there's a little bit of a thing here. If they think it's a recreational vehicle, right, they may try to put it into the recreational vehicle category where you're only using it for recreational purposes. And that's not a good category to be in. You want it to be either in the vehicle category or you want it to be in the domicile category. The thing you live in or the thing you drive. And if it's in the thing you drive category, you want to make sure that's your only thing you drive on SSI. Because if you have more than one vehicle, it's all, counted up against that $2,000 limit. So, or $3,000 if you are basically, with spouse. So one of the things that Biden got a lot of SSI voters on was changing that 2,000, 3,000 limit to 10,000, 20,000, which is much more reasonable with how stupidly expensive cars are. Large part in how fuel has been handled during his White House, forward, progress. But the point here is this: cars, they're not $1,000 anymore. Even the beat up ones that look sad, that the bumpers just need a little bit of lipo. You know what I mean? Maybe a little bit of filler. Those cars are now like $3,000, $4,000. So this whole $2,000 limit is insanity. And this was one of the big things that he promoted, President Biden, prior to becoming essentially, president, that he was going to work to change this. You may be wondering why I don't talk about it often, but to be fair, to be accurate on this, he's not bringing it up. He's not making a bunch of movements and groovements to make it happen. The main thing that I think will happen for SSI beneficiaries is that the 1/3 reduction rule, the in-kind support maintenance rule, they'll be calculating it differently. So people will get more. A lot of recipients will get more closer to basically the full $914. But look, marriage penalty rule, I thought he was going to get rid of that. The restriction, the $2,000 resource restriction, I thought he was going to boost that up to like 10,000, 20,000. Increasing SSI benefits to being 100% of the poverty rate, 115% of the poverty rate. I thought honestly he was going to do those things. I really did. I really genuinely did. But he just didn't. It just wasn't going to happen. Please remember, guys, to like, subscribe this channel. Remember, now that it's pay to play with YouTube for the most part, to get my videos to show up in the suggested videos category, I have to pay. And I'm using a bunch of funds to basically rebuild that house over there so that I can become more financially independent, because student loans at $1,800 a month is not fun. But the point is, if you enjoy this channel, if you enjoy the knowledge, if you enjoy the analytical back and forth, the things that I like, the things that have been bugging me, please remember to subscribe, but then click that little button, because if you don't ring the bell, you're probably not going to see my videos, because you have to click that to get them to show up in your suggested videos category. Now, with that said, I'm going to be doing the next video, which every Thursday I go live. I'm running late today. Normally I start around 9-ish with that video. But we're probably going to be doing this next week on Tuesday. So by the way, Jessica, the moderator, there she is. Moderator, if you're there, we're probably going to be doing on Tuesday a live on Facebook. Same time, same kind of gig, same yeah. So I'll have to set you up on there. Other than that, the next thing that you need to know is that we'll be doing the next video. The way the next video works, very simple, very easy. I make it simple. You call in. You get 5 to 7 minutes. You use a fake name. Mariah Carey gets used a lot. It's odd when a man uses that, but I'm all for it. Next thing, you ask your question. Ask the question. Don't hit me with your story. Ask the legal question. Then I can ferret out from facts that I need to know which way the thing is going to go. But ask, know, understand what your legal question is up front. Because when you start with a story and it's about when you were 10 and blah, 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 by the time I get through, I'm just like, well, 90% of that wasn't part of the question. And that's okay. But if you need more than 5 to 7 minutes, that's fine. I have that $250 per hour thing now, which is where you can email me, say, I need an hour. Cool. You do a PayPal or you do like a check. And then basically you're buying an hour for $250. We schedule it. You sign a little contract thing, which I've already gone through the things, but I'll send it to you through the email. And then you get an hour of me. And it's always longer than an hour. I always do at least like 65 minutes, 70 minutes. That way everybody feels like they got it in. They got all the stuff that they wanted to talk about in. I will catch you guys in the next video. Give me about 10 minutes. And then I will see you there. Hopefully I didn't offend anybody with this video, but I had standards and expectations for Trump and Biden, and some of those things were never met. And I complain about them because, frankly, if you don't hear me complain about them, that means that I have been paid off. And as you can tell, I'm always bitching, which means I'm still poor. So I will catch you guys at the next video, and we will go from there. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Catch you in about 10 minutes. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.